Hello everyone, welcome to this video. So we continue our discussion of functions. So in the previous class we discussed about what are basic functions, how to create a function using def keyword, how to call a function, how to use return statements, what are various type of parameters. So these were the basic things which we covered in functions. Now functions can be very complex because a function, suppose someone might ask you create a function to find the k distinct elements in an array, or example, tell me top k frequent elements, right? This type of questions we have done. Now these functions become very daunting in the sense that they become very big line of codes, right? For example, 20 to 30 lines of codes. So so right, so these are I will say complex functions. Now there are some functions which are pretty straightforward and they involve a single line piece. For example, let us say someone asks you to add two numbers, or let's say someone asks you to sort a list, or someone asks you to get subtraction. Okay, and similarly, suppose someone asks you that you are given a list and you have to return the length of each element in the list, right? These kind of basic attributes that you have to do. So these can be done through functions also, but there is a better approach to do them, that is called lambda functions. Okay, so lambda functions are, they are, I will say, subset. So for example, let's say this is a universe of functions. Okay, so let's say this is functions in general, and lambda functions are a subset of it. Okay, so lambda function are a subset of this. So what happens with lambda, that lambda function are used to for those operations which require basic manipulation, basic adding, sorting, right? Where you don't want to write complex functions, where you don't want to define functions and variables at every place. Because what happens when you declare functions, when you create new variables and all that, they take up space, right? And for basic function operations you don't want to use them. So there comes the concept of lambda functions. So in short, why is lambda function used? Lambda function is used to reduce the I mean complexity of bigger functions and bring them down to one line of codes. Okay, that is the objective of lambda functions. So in this video we will talk about lambda functions, map, reduce, filter. Like these are the major type of functions which are present in Python. So we are starting our discussion with lambda functions. So let us go to the PDF that we have. So let's discuss about, so what is a lambda function? Lambda functions in Python, they are a small anonymous function. So by anonymous you mean there is no I mean they don't exist by default, right? You have to create them. Okay, so they're anonymous, that are defined using the lambda keyword. Okay, I'll come to how to define a lambda function. Unlike regular functions that are defined using the def keyword, lambda functions are limited to single expression. As I mentioned, they are used for single expression only. For example, you have to square a number, you have to cube a number, you have to, let's say, get a remainder from a number. So those kind of operations we solve using lambda function. Then do not require it. So basically in these you do not require a return statement. Okay, as the expression itself is implicitly returned. So this is the basic intuition of a lambda function, that lambda function is a subset of major functions and it performs basic operations, basic one-liner operations for which you don't want to write big codes. Okay, so now let's start. So how are these lambda functions defined? So lambda functions are defined using lambda keyword. There is an argument. So just example, in any function, what you do, you pass some parameters, for example a comma b, and you return. For example, there is a return. So what you do, you provide parameters and then you return some expression, that is how you are toggling with these variables inside it, and you return something. Similarly, lambda functions also work, that in lambda function what you do, suppose this is lambda function, you pass in your parameters. Okay, and there is some expression. So because I mentioned lambda function are just one line expression, so what is that expression you have to write down in the code line. Okay, so the syntax of this looks like lambda, which is the lambda keyword. Then you write the parameter for whatever parameter you are writing, okay, passing, and then use this colons, and then you write down the expression that you are going to use. So this is a simple syntax of a lambda function. Okay, so let's deep dive to these. Just give me a second. Okay, so lambda, there are arguments or parameters, and then there is expression. So let's take a deep dive into what each is exactly. So lambda is the keyword used. So remember, lambda is very important when you have to define any lambda function. So this is the keyword. Argument, as I mentioned, these are the inputs to the lambda function, which can be 0 or more. Okay, if it is 0, then you are defining some constant expression in those cases. An expression, this is a single expression that is evaluated and returned. It must not contain statements or multiple expression. Okay, this is important to note that this is only a single line expression. For example, square, cube, or like whatever operation, we will see those operations. So expression has to be single statement. You cannot do like a statement inside statement or multiple expressions inside each other. So that part you cannot do. Now point comes when to use lambda functions. Okay, so they are single use function. They are useful when you need a small function for a short period and you don't want to give it a name. Exactly. So here, if you remember, if you see that we have not created any function name here. Like for our regular function, we create def and then we create a function name which we actually call it later on. Here you don't need to give any name. You can just write down the expression, take the output, and use in your code. So this is the first important. Inline functions perfect for use in higher, or we will talk about these pointers later, because when we use higher order function like map, filter, reduce, sorted, okay, there you use it. And sometimes lambda function can make code very readable, because there's a boilerplate code. What happens that these code refer to sections of code that are very repeated. For example, I told you, right, let's say there are pieces where you are adding two numbers. Now if you don't define a function, you have to write down that code again and again and again, and there these functions are useful. So in short, so we have to use in small one-time these are technically one-time expressions. That's what the theory part says. Now let us move towards solving a few questions, so that you guys understand how to exactly do it. So single argument, where you are only passing a single argument. So what you do is that, for example, let us say you have to calculate the square of a number. So how will you do it? So let's say you have to calculate square of a number. You do square, let's say you create this variable name square. So how to write down the lambda function is use the lambda keyword. Okay, you use the lambda keyword, then you define the variable that is your parameter. For example, let us say it is x. Okay, so this is your argument. This is your argument, and this is your colon, and this is your, suppose your x into x, and this becomes your expression. That whatever operation you are performing on that particular argument, that becomes expression. So this is your syntax of a lambda function. Now when you use this function on any particular number, you will be getting the result. Okay, so what you have done, you created a function and named it. So basically you created you stored it an object, square, and then whenever you call the square by passing this value of x, it will square. So let's write down a code ourselves. So let's say our first code is square. It should be equal to lambda, right? Now what is my initial? Let's call it x, and I am doing an x into x. Okay, or you can do x into 2 something. So let's write down x into x. So this is it. Now when I run this code, now let me call using square and using 5. So it is okay, sorry, it has taken x 5 raised to the power 5. I'm sorry. So we have to get square. So now when I do 25, right, because see, this means 5 raised to the power of 5, and this means 5 into 5. So that is it. You run it and you got the square. So see, we didn't use any, otherwise what you would have done, you would have taken def square, okay, and you would have said okay x, and then what you do, so you do c is equal to x into x, and then you do return c, something like that you write, okay. Now this can be replaced by a single line of code, what I have done here, and it is very useful. You might be thinking that that space is not reduced much, but actually this helps in better time complexity, and this is very useful when you are talking about complex codes. So we will see those examples as we move ahead. So this was a single argument. Okay, now suppose we have a multiple argument as well. Suppose let's say I want to add two numbers. So what I will do add is equal to again lambda. Okay, now I have two parameters. So let's say I have a comma b. So a comma b, this is my parameters, and what is the expression I'm doing? I'm adding these two variables. Okay, now let's call add, and let's pass 5 comma 6. Okay, 11. Okay, so we got the value 5 comma 6. Let's reduce the parameter to only one. Let's see what it gives. It gives an error because missing required one more positional argument b, because this lambda function is defined for two parameters, so you have to pass both the parameters here, a comma 6. Okay, so this is the first thing. How do you handle multiple arguments? And are these in order? Yes, these, for example, let's say this is subtract and I do a minus b. Okay, so the order will matter. Suppose I do 5 6, sorry, so I have to call subtract, so it got -1, right? So it will not change. And let's say I do a equal to 5 and b equal to 6, it still does not change. So it does not matter if you are passing keyword value like this. It does not work like the regular functions. You have to pass in the order that you have given in the particular lambda function, because these are just single line expressions. Okay, so this is the second type of things. Now third is lambda using sorted. So this becomes important. So sorted is something when you use a list, right? For example, let's say you have some points, you want to sort these points by the second element, because there are three tuples, see, 1 2 and 3. You want to sort these tuples by the second element. So either you can sort using first element 2 1 4, and or you can sort by using the second element 3 2 0. So what you will do, you will create sorted points, and this is the function sorted that is used on a list. And first of all, you will pass the input value, that is the input list. Then you will say key equal to lambda, and then you are passing the point. So let me explain you how this particular thing works. So let's say you have this points. Okay, now what you will do, points underscore sorted. So you're creating a new list which is sorted. Now how you actually going to start this? You have to call this sorted function on a list. Okay, so this is a list. So remember, sorted is always used on a list. Okay, so just like here you're using sorted on your list. So after this, the first point is the list that you are using, that you have to sort. So which list you need to sort? It is points. Okay, this is points. And now the next thing is you have to write key. Key is equal, on what basis are you sorting? So key is equal to lambda, you need to write down. Okay, key is equal to lambda. And next thing comes expression, that what argument and variable you need to pass. Now in this particular list, if you see, there are three tuples, you can say a. So for example, let's say when we write for a in this, so a takes value this and this, right? So you mention a, and on what basis do you need to sort? It is first element or the second element? It is the second element. So you will write down a1. Okay, and on this basis you can just simply run it. Now let's say if I print points underscore sorted, I will get 0, 2. So see, this is 0, 2 and 3. Okay. Now for example, I add reverse equal to true. So if I add reverse equal to true, then I will this array will be sorted in reverse order. So now I will get 2 3 first, then 1 2, then 4 0. Okay, that's how it becomes. Now if I want to sort on my first element, so I just need to do a 0. Okay, so that's how it works. This is very important. Remember, in the questions when we have to sort a dictionary or a sort an array or sort a list of tuples, right? There this particular concept is very much used, using lambda function to sort variables. So this is the so these are the three type of concepts which you need to know about lambda function. The first thing is that lambda is used to this function is used only for one line expressions. So the first thing is you need to pass the variables or arguments, and the second, after semicolon, you need to mention what all expression is going to be there. So this is please remember this particular sorted question, because this we will be using extensively in DSA problems, or maybe whenever we move ahead with EDA part as well. So this will be used extensively. So now we will solve three basic questions on lambda functions. So the first question that we have, it says write a lambda function to find the cube of a given number. So how will we do it? So let's come here. Now let's say under regular circumstances, how will you write down def cube, and you'll say the number, let's say a, and you'll say return a power 3. Okay, and then you will call you'll call cube, and let's say you say 2. So 2 cube is 8, right? This is the regular function that you will write. Now let's see how will we write in lambda function. So you call it cube 1, okay, is equal to, so first thing is you have to call lambda. You call lambda. Now what is the expression? Remember, the first is argument. So let's say the argument is a, and the second thing what you're doing is a raised to the power 3. Okay, so that's how the lambda function is. Now if I do cube 1 and I call 2, I got 8, right? So that is how this works. So this was the first code for write a lambda function to find the cube of a given number. So you simply use the lambda keyword, you use the argument, let's say it is a, and you are using the value cubes 2 raised to the power 3. So this is the first question. Now let's see the second question. Create a lambda function that takes two strings and return the one that is longer. So let us say there are two strings, s1 and s2. So let's say this is s1 equal to, let's say, machine, and s2 is equal to learning. Okay, let's say there are two strings. We know that s2 is greater, but we have to create a function that returns the longer variable. So how will we write down the lambda function? So we'll say longer string. Okay, longer string is equal to. So what do we have to do? Lambda, you have to use the lambda keyword. Okay, then what are the parameters that we are passing? The question says that it takes two strings. So what are those two strings? s1 and s2. s1 comma s2. Okay, after this you have to write down the expression. Now what we have to do, we will return s1 if length of s1 is greater than s2, otherwise we will return s2, correct? So, and I'm assuming that the strings are not equal right now, otherwise we will add another else if condition. So that is not the point. So we will do s1. So s1 if length of s1 is greater than length of s2, else we return s2. Okay, and now let's run this. Longer string and we pass s1 comma s2. So let's see what it returns. It returns learning. Okay, now let's say I add something to it, something like this, and now when I run it, it will return me the lengthier keyword. So that's how it will work. Now if if they are equal, then you can further add elif and those particular things, like if the lengths are equal, then what needs to be done. So that is a separate case, but you will do it exactly like this only. So my objective is to teach you how to write down a lambda function. So there are two strings which you are passing, and the expression is this only. Okay, so now let's move to the question number 3. So the question number 3 says, use a lambda function to sort a list of dictionaries by a specified key. Okay, so let's see this dictionary here. That we have this dictionary which has so it's a list of dictionaries, right? So this is dictionary 1, this is dictionary 2, this is dictionary 3. So we have the first name and age, name and age, name and age. Okay, and we have to sort by a specified key. So for example, I want to sort this. We'll try both the methods. So first we will sort by name. Okay, and then we will sort by let's say age. Remember this type of question we have done in the DSA problem. So please follow this particular explanation very well, because we'll be using this concept directly in a lot of DSA problems when you have to return the longest subarray, those kind of lengths. So what we do, we take all the subarrays and then we create their lengths, and then we return the subarray with the maximum length, or we sort those arrays depending upon length, right? So that's how this is a similar application of those questions. So now what we do, that we have to, this is a list, remember we have to use sorted. So how we do that? Sort that, let's say new dictionary, okay, is equal to the, first of all, this is a list, so we will use the sorted keyword. So sorted keyword will be using like this. Now what we need to do, if you remember, we discussed in the previous question where we learned how to use sorted. So how do we do? The first part is you need to mention the list that you are passing. So we are using people. Okay, now comes key. Key is equal to lambda. Okay, key comes to be lambda, and after this you have multiple elements. See, so you have name. So for example, this list has 3 elements. Element A is this, element B is this, and element C is this. Okay, or you can say when we write for A in this, so it will iterate over this, and then the second dictionary and the third dictionary. So let's say that dictionary is A. Okay, and what do I need to do? In A, I have to get the name. So I have to get through name. Okay, and do I need to sort ascending or by default it is ascending? So I'm not changing that. So I provided the list which I need to pass, then I use the word keyword key equal to lambda. Now I need to sort it through name, not age. So what I will do, this A is iterating over each of the elements inside this list. Okay, so this is the argument, and in that argument A, I am taking the value corresponding to name. Okay, so Alice, Bob, and Charlie. So that's how it will be. And now let's run this. So name, people is okay. Sorry, I need to run this. Okay, now let's run this. Okay, so now if I do print new underscore dict, I'll get this. So name Alice, age 25, A, B, C. So that's how it is sorted. Now if you see, Alice is first, A, then B, then C. Now the array was already sorted, so what we will try to do, we'll do it reverse. Add reverse equal to true. So now what will happen? Charlie will come to the first and Alice will move to the last. So now let's run it. See, Charlie came to the first and Alice moved to the last. Now suppose we want to sort this array by using their age. So what we will do, we'll simply copy this code here. Now new, so let's say new dict 2, okay, and sorted will remain same, people will remain same, key lambda A, instead of name we have to make it age. So age is the key. Okay, and let's say I don't want reverse equal to true right now, I just want normal sorting. And now when I print it, so see, this part, this should come first now because this is 20, 25, 30. So let's see what comes the result. See, Bob comes first. Bob has age 20, Alice has age 25, and Charlie has age 30. So this is how it is sorted. And you can use reverse equal to true as well to reverse the order in whatever order you want. So this is very important. How do you sort dictionaries? How do you sort list of dictionaries, list of tuples, right? That you do using the lambda function, and it is a very important concept. So I hope this explanation is clear to you guys. Now I will move to the next topic. So just a summary that we did lambda function, how lambda is created. It's a single line expression, and we use argument and then we use expression. Okay, and they are used in different use cases. So try to solve these 3 questions on your own as well. So let us take our discussion to the next set of functions that are called built. There are some built-in functions called map, reduce, and filter. So we will go through them one by one. We will start with map, right? So far we have discussed functions. Okay, we discussed general functions, how to create them, address them. And after this, we found a smaller version of these called as lambda function. Okay, and these are used to create one-liner, basically one-liner expressions. So the next, now this lambda function, what it does is actually it creates that it says that whenever you give me an element, okay, an element, I will convert it into some expression, or using that expression I will convert into some number. Now what lambda function does not do, it cannot work on a list directly. It cannot work on a tuple. It cannot work on a dictionary, right? You have to pass individual element to this lambda function. Okay, so to correct that, for example, let us say you want to apply a lambda function to a whole list. Okay, so there you use map function. So you use map with lambda. Okay, so I'll explain in detail what it does. So map function, so what is a mapping technically? For example, let's say in SQL, when we have 2 databases, correct? When we do a left and right join, so what we do, for example, let's say there is a customer ID 101 here. Okay, and here, so let's say this is a customer table and this is a transaction table. Okay, and I want to know all the transaction of a customer. So what I will do, I will check the customer ID in this particular table, and I will do a left join, right join, whatever I want, right? So technically what I'm doing, I'm creating a map. I'm mapping this 101 with this one with this. Okay, if there is a 102, I'll map it with 102, and I will create new rows. So this is called mapping. In mapping, what you do, that you take a function. Okay, you take a function and you apply it to an iterable. Okay, so this is what map does. It maps a function which you have already built to a list, to a tuple, or something like that. So just let me clear my board. So what a map function does, a map function, so what it does, it takes a function. Okay, it takes a function and applies that function to an iterable. That iterable could be a list, it could be a tuple, it could be any other data structure. Okay, it can any other data structure it could be. Okay, so this is what it does. For example, let us say you created a function which can square a number. Okay, so you did lambda, and you said x square. Okay, now what you will do, this is your function. So with map, what you will do, you'll create map word. So you'll say that this is my function, and you'll pass it. For example, let us say there is a list 1 2 3 4 5. Okay, let's name it L. So what you will do, you'll pass this list to this function. So what it will map will do, it will convert, it will basically create a map for each of the element. It will create a mapping with this, that okay, 1 it will convert to 1 square, 2 it will convert to 2 square, and 3 it will convert to 3 square. Okay, so this is what the objective of a map function is. So let's read about the map function in detail, because there are very nuances which we need to understand. So the map function in Python is used to apply a given function to all the items in an input iterable, such as a list, and return an iterator that produces the result. So this is the objective of a map function. This can be very useful for performing element-wise operation in a list or a other iterable. Okay, so what it does, that element-wise application map allows you to apply a function to each element of an iterable, as I mentioned, producing a new iterable. Now map is a higher order function, meaning it takes another function as an argument. So what are the arguments of a map? We just saw that map takes a list. For example, it will take a list and it will take a function. Now this function can be a lambda function. Okay, it can be your regular DEF functions. It could be anything. So map directly intakes, so this is called a higher order function. Map are called high order function because they take functions as their input and they also take list as their input. Okay, so that is the point. Map is a higher order function, meaning it takes another function. Now lazy evaluation, the result of map is an iterator, which means the computation is not performed until you explicitly. So what happens is that when you just apply map and if you print, it will not give you the, for example, let me show you so let us say this is a list. L is equal to 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, now what you did, let's say created P is equal to map. Okay, now you have to create a function first of all. So what you will do, the function, let's say, is lambda x square. Okay, and then you are passing the list, that is L. Now if you try to, let's see the type of P. It is a map. Okay, we have created a map. Now if I try to print this thing, it will not print me the list because it is a map object. So this is what this point is saying, that the result of map is an iterator, which means the computation is not performed. So if you have to convert this thing into a list, you need to, so these are just mappings. It is saying that okay, whatever number is present in this, I will map it with its square. That's all it is doing. It is not actually performing the activity. To actually perform, you need to convert this into a list back. Okay, if you convert this back to a list and now you print it, now you will get it, right? So now if you check the type of P, it is a list. Okay, so that is the main point here. The map is directly not, map will directly not declare you any result. You have to convert it into a list, tuples, or whatever iterator you are having. So this is a very important thing to know, lazy evaluation. So now we will read about little bit more, that why use map instead of directly passing it to a lambda function. So you might be asking, okay, why are we using this? Instead, can't we do something like this? P is equal to lambda. Let's say there is a list. List is equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, let's do this. Now you must be saying, why are you using a map function? Simply do lambda and do L, which is your list, and do, okay, L is your list, and what you will do, L square. Okay, now if you do this, let's see what comes. Okay, see, it didn't produce any square, or okay, see, it didn't produce you anything, correct? So that is the main point, that lambda cannot be directly used on a list. If you have to pass it on a list properly, then you need to use map only. The lambda function is designed to be used on individual elements. If you directly pass a list to lambda function, it will treat the entire list as a single argument, which is not the intended use case. Okay, so it will assume the whole list to be single thing, and so map allows the lambda function to be applied to each element. So if you have to apply this function to each of the element, then you need to use map function along with lambda. So let's see the syntax as I saw, that map function and iterable. So let's see what will happen without map. If you try to pass a list directly to a lambda function, it won't work. Okay, and because the lambda function is not designed to handle lists as a whole. So see, I did a square x, which is x square. Okay, and now I'm printing square 1 2 3 4 by passing a list, and it will throw me an error just like this. And what is the error? Cannot multiply sequence by a non-int type of list. Okay, so lambda, you have to pass individual element. You cannot pass a list to a lambda, individual element or string, whatever you use. Okay, so there comes the map function, so which we just did. That with map, you do map with lambda, so you pass the function first and then you pass the list, and then you convert it to list again, and so that you have to get the numbers. So this is the whole explanation of map. What map does is take a function and apply it to a list of a list or a tuple or whatever. So detailed explanation says the function is to be applied to each element of the iterable. It can be a regular function or a lambda function, as I just show that you can use a def function as well, or you can use a lambda function. And iterable, it can be list, tuple, or anything whose elements the function will be applied to. And multiple iterable can be, this we will see with example. So when to use map? When you need to perform the same operation on an element of an iterable and it does a cleaner code. So basically this is used to write clean codes. See, we performed a big operation here where squared everything in a single line only. Instead of writing big like for loops and all that, we just simply did everything using lambda and map. So this is the application. Now let's look at couple of example. So let's say you are having a list of temperature in Celsius and you want to convert into Fahrenheit, and you can use a lambda function. So let's say this is my Celsius. So what I will do, let's say this is my Celsius table. So list. So what I will do, that let's say P is equal to, first of all I'll create a map. Now inside map you have to pass a function. So what that function will be, let's say lambda, and you take an iterable A, and what you will do, 9 by 5 A plus 32, right? So it has to be 9 by 5 into, or you can say A into 9 by 5 plus 32. Okay, this is how you convert to Fahrenheit. Now you have to pass Celsius, SIUS. Okay, you pass this list. Now let's see what is the type of P. Again, type of P becomes map. And now if I do a convert this back to list, it will become this. And now if I do type of P, it becomes list. Now let me print P. Okay, so it is 32.068.0. So I have converted this list into a Celsius into Fahrenheit. So that is what the objective of this code was. So see, you take this lambda, convert, and then you map. So this is just an explanation. Now I'm showing you 3 questions where we are using. So first question says find the square of a list using map. So how do you square of a list using map? So let's say you have a list L is equal to 1 2 3 4 5, and you have to create a square. So you can use a lambda function as well. You can use a lot of things, but let us say I want to do is using map. So what I will do is P is equal to list map. So let's write it backwards. So first I will map. What is my function? Square. So I'll say lambda x into x. So I have to square it, correct? So, or you can simply multiply it by x itself. So this is my lambda function, and now I need to pass it to L. Okay, and then what I will do, I'll convert it back to list this, and print, and I will do P. Print P. So this is 149, 16, 25. This is the square of my number using lambda function. So similarly, convert to uppercase. So let us say, so what we have done here, we have a list hello world. So again, we take the lambda function, we take x and we convert x dot upper, okay, and then we pass it to the word. So what are we doing here? Let's say this is the list we are having. So what are we doing? Let's say again, write it down, p is equal to map, okay. So I'll write on the lambda. Now what I'm doing, I'm taking a, I'm converting into a dot upper, okay, and I'm passing the list, that is words. And now I will do list. Now if I do print p, I got hello world, correct? So this is how you use lambda function to convert it into upper cases. Now adding to list. So how do you add to list? For example, so let's say let's copy things from here only, that you have list 1 and list 2. So let's say this is list 1, list 2. Now what you want to do, let's say p is equal to map. Now first you have to write the lambda function, lambda, now x comma y, or you can simply say, yeah, let's change this for easy understanding. Okay, sorry, let's say this is L1, this is L2. Okay, now so lambda is taking x comma y, and what it is doing, it is x plus y. And now I will call my the list that I need to pass. So it should be L1 comma L2, like this. So list 1 comma list 2. So L1 comma L2, and I will close it. Now I run this. Now let's convert this to list and do a print of p. So x plus y, list of map. So just let me cross check. Map x y, x plus y. So what? So yeah. So what happened that we added these two lists. Now what will happen? That 4 plus 1 it will happen, because x comma y in this, right? So 4 plus 1 will be 5. 5 plus 2 will be this. 3 plus 6 will be 9. So that's how you do. Suppose you have to add elements across a list, something like this. So this is not appending the list. This is adding elements of lists. So this is how map function is used. So now we will do three more practice question to strengthen our concepts of map. So we will start with three coding questions for the map, right? So the first question says that use map function to find the length of each word in a list. So for example, let us say we have a list, let's say list of strings. Okay, this is equal to, so the first word, let's say again, is apple, second is banana, and third is, let's say, cat. Okay, so I have these three elements in a list. Now what I need to do, create a map. So let's say p is equal to map. So map, first you need to create a function that basically takes an element and gets its length. So what you will do, you will take lambda, and for lambda you are passing an element a, and what you are doing, returning as length of a, correct? And now you are passing this to L, which is my list. So now convert this to a list, and let's print p. So we got 563, right? So this function, we have created a function which takes any list and return the length of individual strings which are present inside it. So this was the first question. Now let's do the question number 2. Question number 2 is write a map function that converts a list of temperature to Celsius. So we just did this now at the top, right? Where we take Celsius and convert it into Fahrenheit. So this is the question. You can refer it back here. Now let's solve the question number 3. Apply map to compute the factorial. Now this is a very interesting question. Apply map to get the, so map to get factorial. Now remember, lambda function are used only only to get one-liner codes, basically where very simple expressions are there, adding, subtraction, those kind of things. Factorial is something big, because if you remember, creating a for factorial, we have to create a separate function itself, and it is not a one-line function. It has multiple things. So what will be our approach? First, create a factorial function. Create a factorial function using def, and second will be to use map along with def function. Okay, so that's what we'll do. Remember, I told that map can be used with any, it can be used with a lambda function, it can be used with a regular function as well. So first we will create a regular function. So let's see, create def factorial. Okay, and let's say we are passing a number n to this. So what we will do, if n is equal to 0, okay, then we are returning 1. Okay, because factorial for 0 is 1. Now let's initialize factorial equal to 1. Okay, now what we're doing, for I in range, now this will vary till 1 to n plus 1, correct? I is varying from this to this, and I'm doing factorial is equal to factorial into I. That's what I'm doing. And now return factorial. Okay, now if I run this function, now let me just check it, factorial, and I pass value 5, so it should come to be 120, and it is 120. So this function is created now. Now my step 2, use map along with this. So let's say I have a list of numbers, for example, again let's take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10. Let's say I have this list. I have to convert all these numbers into a factorial rather than individual number. I have to convert whole list into a factorial. So what I will do, p is equal to map, and what is my function? So first function has to be factorial, correct? So we can simply pass factor, or we can do lambda. Okay, so what are we doing in lambda? We are taking any number x, okay, and we are converting it into factorial of x, okay. So we took any number and we are using the function factorial x, and then we need to do L, what we are using. And now if we use this thing, now instead of this, I'll convert into list, and now I print p. See, I got the factorial of all the numbers inside a list. So this is what we have to do technically, that we take any number and we convert it into fact. Now let's say I try it without using, so now it will throw error. So lambda is lame, x is not defined, so that is why you need to create a lambda function along with your regular function, and then you need to pass this list. So this is how it is done. So this was all about map. So map is technically used to take a function and apply it to an iterable. It could be a list or tuple. And we have solved few of the practice questions. So please practice these regular questions on yourself as well. It will help you. Okay, so now we will move to the next topics, that are filter and reduce. Now let us take our discussion to the next function after map, that is filter function. So filter function is just like map. So let me tell you what I mean. What map used to do is that in map you have a function, okay, and you pass it to a for example, an iterable or a list or a tuple, whatever. And what it does, it converts it. So for example, let's say there was a list 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay, and what it does, that it will pass on this function to each of the element and create a new list. For example, square 1, 4, 9, 16, 25. Filter is just little bit different from this. What it does in filter, it is the same thing. You use filter, then you use function, and then you use iterable. Okay, so what it does, that this function basically tests on iterable tests some condition. For example, it tests whether the number is even or not, odd or not, or some number is prime or not, like something like this. It tests something condition. So it can either result in a true or it can result in a false. So those elements of the iterable which are resultant in a true, they are filtered and they are stored in a new list, that is L. And the thing that do not satisfy this, so they move here, and the things that do not satisfy, they actually are filtered. So that is the objective of filter. Why we call it filter? That for example, so this is a filter. It gets lot of values. It only passes those which satisfy the condition true. Okay, so that's the only difference from the map. That map applied to everything, it does not. It just passes the function to certain values only. So the filter function constructs an iterator from an elements of an iterator where function returns true. This function tests each element in the iterable to determine if it should be included in the result or not. Okay, so again, its syntax is just like we are using the filter function. It is function and iterable. Now this is a testing function. This is a function that tests whether each element of the iterable should be included. It must retain a boolean value, true or false. Okay, so an iterable, we know it is a list, tuple, etc. that we need to filter. Now how filter works? The function is applied to each of element of the iterable. If the function returns true for an element, that element is included in the result. If the function returns false, the element is excluded from the result. The result is again an iterator which can be converted to a list, just like we did here. Okay, so we take a list, we pass a condition, the values which pass that condition, they are used. So where do you use that conditional formatting if you need to do, or you have to basically clean your code? So let's see how this works. So the first thing is filter even numbers. For example, you have a list numbers like this and you have to filter. So how will you do that? So for example, let us say we have a list like this here, and so let me get it, Control C. Okay, so let's say we have a list. So what we will do, first of all, we'll create a function to check if a number is even or not. So how will we do that? So let's say our function even is equal to lambda. Okay, and we are taking a number n and returning that a percentage 2 equal to 0. So if it is true, this will return true, otherwise it will return false, just like here. So what we did, we take an even function and we checked whether a number is positive or not. And now what we will do is we will use this function on, let's say, p is equal to filter. Now remember what is the syntax of a filter function? You have to pass a function and the iterable. So what is the function that we have created? Even. So we'll use that function even. And now what is my iterable? It is numbers. Okay, now let's say I run this. Now let me check the type of p. It is a filter right now. So now to convert it back, what I will be doing, I'll be doing list, and it will convert. And now when I print p, it will give me 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So it has given me the functions which are positive, which are even. Correct? So that's how you do. Now instead of writing this down, you can even reduce it just by passing the lambda function directly. Okay, so it all becomes one line code if you have to create a function to check if a number is even or not. Okay, so that's easy it is. Everything becomes a single line code. You don't need to write like multiple defs and all that to check if a number, like you're writing for loop and while loop to check. So you don't need to do that. So that's how it is done. Now let's check the another question. So filter words starting with a specific letter. So let's say I have to filter words with which are starting with A from this particular list. So what I will do is that, So first of all, I'll create a function to check if string starts with a. Okay, so what will I do? Let's create the lambda function. Lambda, I'll take a. Okay, and I have to do a of 0 equal to a, correct? Something like this. If it is true, then I will be having that letter. Or there is also a method where you use starts with, but let's say you forget it how to do starts with. So what you will do, you'll take each element and you will check the first element of string and it should be a. Now what we do, let's say z is equal to filter. So what is my function name? That is p. I'm passing it to words and I have to convert this back to a list. And now I print C. Okay, so I got apple and avocado. So that's how this works. And now I remove this thing from here. Instead of passing P, I'll just write down the function here and it becomes a single line code. So this is how you create a function to check, return those elements which are starting with a specific character like A. So this is what it says. Now let's check few other questions. Filter non-empty strings. Okay, so what you have a string, you have a list of strings. You have to filter out non-empty strings. Okay, so what you will do, let's directly do this using filter. So what you will do, filter. Now I have to write down a lambda function. So let's say the function is lambda. It takes x. Okay, and what we want that x should not be equal to this, correct? And if this is the case, I have to pass strings to it. Okay, and now I will convert it back to list and now I will print p. So what it will do, it will check those strings which are not like this. It will return those. So hello world and Python, it should return. Okay, so that is how it is done. So simple thing. So lot of complex things become very easy when you use lambda function along with filter or map or something like that. So it becomes pretty easy. Now see a couple of similarly an example I've shared for you guys can try filter prime numbers. So what you will do, you first of all you create a helper function like this using is prime. Now you pass that function correct, and then you pass the list and you check whether it is agreeing or not. Similarly, filter words longer than a certain length. So what you can do, you can create a function that if a function is let's say you want to check if the length of each element is greater than 5 or let's say greater than 3. You want to filter out those words. So for example, let's say we have these many words so which are greater than 5 or let's say 3. Okay, so which are greater than 3. So what we will do in the lambda function, we have to return length of x has to be greater than 3. And see, it has returned me those elements which are greater than 3. So that's how you can modulate. And now we will solve 3 practice questions using filter. So let us solve the 3 practice questions of filter. The first says filter negative numbers from a list. So write down a lambda function to check if a number is positive and use the filter function. So what do we have to do? Let us say we have this list numbers and we have to filter out create a new list which contains only the positive value. So what we will do is, let's say we create a filter is equal to, or let's say filtered, or let's say only the positive, name it positive underscore list. Now what it will be like? So first of all, we'll be using filter. Okay, and in filter what I'm going to check first, I'll create the lambda function. So lambda function will be lambda. Now x I want if the number is greater than 0. Okay, and I need to apply this on the numbers. So now I will convert it back to list, and I will print positive list. Okay, so I convert it back to this, and I've got the positive numbers where it is 15, 25, 30 and 40. So see, we created the function where the number is positive lambda, and then we created passed on this iterable, and it gave me a new list which is only positive numbers. Now second question, filter out even length strings. Okay, so to check if the length of a string is odd, so I want the strings which have odd length. So what I will do, so odd is equal to filter. Now I have to create a lambda function, lambda x. Now I have to check if the length of x, so this %2 should not be equal to 0, right? We want odd numbers, and then we pass strings, and after that we use list in front of this to convert, and now print odd. So see, apple, it has 1 2 3 4 5 length, 5 3 and again 5. So those numbers are populated, those strings are populated. Now let's see the question number 3. Filter out words that do not start with a vowel. So I want those words which start with a vowel. So what I will do, again, no vowel. Okay, this has to be equal to filter lambda x. Now what I have to do, x of 0 should not be in A, E, I, O, U, right? And I pass this to words, and now I convert this to a list, and now I print no vowel. So see, I got those strings which are not starting with vowel, so which are basically starting with consonant. So this is basically the application of filter, how you use filter along with lambda. It is not necessary to use lambda, we can use simple def functions as well, but because these questions are simple and we are just doing one line calculations, so that's why we are using lambda functions along with it. So try to build a habit, try to solve these questions on your own. These are very much effective when we will move forward. So now let us discuss the last function, that is reduce. Okay, so as the name suggests, what a reduce should do. For example, let us say you have a line of length. So what it does, let's say you have a length of length 100 centimeter. Okay, so when you apply reduce, it will first break it to 50 centimeter. Okay, and then you further apply, it will bring it to 25. And if you further apply, it will bring to maybe 1 centimeter. So this is what an application of reduce is. It takes a bigger chunk, okay, and convert into a single unit. Okay, it takes a bigger chunk like this, 100 centimeter, and converts it into a basic unitary unit. So let's see how it applies here. So for example, let us say you have a list L is equal to 1 2 3 4 and 5. Okay, and now you have defined a lambda function which takes the sum of two elements. So what it does, lambda, and you do x, so sorry, x comma y, and then you do x plus y. So when you apply this lambda, so remember what happens when you use map, it converts to all. What happens when you use filter, it basically selects few values. Okay, and when you use reduce, what it does, it keeps on applying this function to this list till number of elements are reduced to 1. So for example, reduced to 1. Okay, so what it will do, that first of all it will take, so let us say you have this list 1 2 3 4 5. So when you apply the sum of 2 to this, what will happen? It will first of all sum this. So the sum becomes 3. Okay. Now it will take this with sum with this one. Now it becomes 6. Now it will sum this with this one. It will become 10. And now it will sum with this. It will become 15. And the resultant will be a simple single number 15. Okay. So what it does, it took a list and it took a function. It kept on applying that function till that list or iterable is reduced to one element. Okay, and it reduces it to one element. Now it could be an addition, it could be a subtraction, it could be a multiplication, or whatever application you want to do. So intuitively, this is what reduce does. It takes a list, it takes an iterable and reduce it to a single, for example, a single element. So that's what it does. Now let us read about it. So now remember, this reduce function is not present directly in the Python, so you have to import it using from this func tools. So the reduce function from the func tools module in Python applies a given function cumulate. So basically this is used to cumulate to the items of an iterable, so that to reduce the iterable to a single value. So this is, you have to keep in mind, it reduces the iterable to a single value. So how it works is that you, from func tools, you import reduce, okay, because this is by default not present in Python, and then you use reduce keyword just like we use filter or map. Then you pass the function and then you pass the iterable just like we used to do for other works. So how it works, the first two elements of the iterable are taken and the function is applied to them. Then cumulative application. The result of the function is then combined with the next element, just like I spoke. First it will add these, then it will add it to this, then add to this, then add to this. Okay, it will cumulate. So the process continues till all the elements of the iterable have been processed, resulting in a single cumulative value. Okay, so when to use reduce? As simple, when you have to cumulative operation. So when you have some cumulative operation, you will use the reduce or aggregation type of things. So we will start simple, we'll start like with a couple of examples. So let us say you have sum of numbers. So what you do, from func tools you import reduce, you take the list and you create the function, and you just like use the reduce, pass the function and use the numbers. So let us solve this here. So for example, let's say we have this list. Now what we do, from func tools import reduce. Okay, now I have this numbers. Now what I will do, I'll create p is equal to, let's call it reduce. Now first I have to create a function to sum. So how to create a function? Lambda x comma y and return as x plus y. So I'm taking two elements and doing their sum. After that, what I will do, after that what I'm going to do, I'm just going to pass numbers. Okay, and list, convert it in back into list, and now print t. So I did something wrong. Okay, so reduce is okay, so, yeah, sorry, my bad. Here you do not need to use reduce, it will directly work. Okay, you don't because the type, let me show you the type of, because reduce itself reduces to a single integer, so it is not a type of, let's say, p. Okay, so it is an integer, so technically it reduces them to an integer. So rather than converting to a list, it just reduces them to an integer. So let us come to question number 2, that is a product of two numbers, right? So it is exactly the same. So I don't need to code and show. So what we are doing, that we have, let's say, the list of numbers like this, 1, 2, 3, 4. First of all, we'll create a lambda function to multiply the two numbers. So we create multiply two numbers, and the lambda function, I'm taking two numbers x, y, and creating the product. And now using reduce, I'm passing this function and the list, and it will reduce it to the product. So that's how it works. Now let's say the maximum value. So again, you have a list. Now first I create a lambda function which will return me which of the two numbers is higher, right? X and y. X, if x is greater than y, else y. Okay, and after this you pass it to reduce, and you pass the function and the iterator, and you will get the result. So these are the basic questions. Now let's deep dive into little bit more. So the question number 2 and 3, I have just explained the product of a list of elements, find the minimum value. And now let's say calculate the sum of squares. So for example, let us say I have a list. L is equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So now let me run this. So what I need to do, first of all, from func tools, import reduce. Okay. After this, I have to create a lambda function. So what I will do is that square, basically sum of squares. So what you do in sum of squares, you take a previous number and you add with the square of the next number, right? So how it works, lambda, you take x comma y, and what you do, you take the x, the previous number, that is, and you add with the square of the next number. And now if you do, now you have to get the final list. So let's say final is equal to reduce, you pass this function, that is sum of squares, and you technically pass it to L. Okay, and now let's see print final. Okay, so you got 55. So that's how it works. Now just to explain, sum of square means you are adding a number with the square of the next number. So what you're doing, you're taking a number x and you're adding to the next number's square, and similarly you will iterate it using all the values in this list. So that's how you have created this function. Question number 2 and 3 we have solved just now. So this was a description of reduce. So that's where we finished all the major functions. These are the advanced functions, I will say, in Python. So we did, so let's do a recap what all we did in functions. So first of all, we read about functions in general and how to create the functions using def keyword. Okay, and then we talked about calling a function, returning a value, and then we talked about parameters. Okay, so these were the basic. So this was the basic function. After this, we introduced 3 types of functions. First was map, second was filter, and third was reduce, which are used along with lambda functions, So what does a lambda function do? Lambda function are one line codes only. These are just like one line expressions. Okay, and how to do write a lambda function? You take lambda and you pass x, and then you pass whatever operation you need to do, and you use this lambda function along with map. So what map does, it applies the function, the function to all the values of a iterator. Okay, this function filters based on the condition, based on function. It filters based on function, and reduce, it aggregates or accumulates, based on function. So this is what you need to understand. This is the whole summary of whatever we have covered in this function, in functions as a whole. And you have some around few questions which you can practice in the end and submit as an assignment. So we did functions in very much detail. This will really help you, because a lot of times you all the Python coding that is actually done, it is done through functions only. So the internal part that we have been doing so far is just to build logics, but in actual, whenever you see a big codes, you deal through functions only. So revise these particular things very thoroughly, and we'll be using them extensively. So I hope you are understanding the topics that we have covered so far. This is of prime importance, and if you guys don't understand anything, as I mentioned, please feel free to comment on the video or reach out to on WhatsApp group or something like that. Okay, so after this we will be doing some algorithms, few more topics before we reach to EDA. So I really thank you all for participating in these classes, doing the assignments. You all have been doing exceptionally well. So keep the motivation high. We have this month's time, we want to finish everything. So thanks again for watching the video. Please subscribe to our channel if you have not yet. It will help us in creating more content like this. And if you have any feedback regarding the video, that my explanations are slow, fast, or whatever, please feel free to tell us. So thanks again and have a good day.